Today, we're going to use this informational article titled Rescuing Miracle to answer a critical thinking question. Remember that a critical thinking question is a question that the answer is not found right there in the article, but instead a question that requires you to take parts of the article and use inferences to come up with a complete answer to the question. And so, like always, when we read a passage, we begin by reading it out loud. And so here we go. On a June day in Arkansas, some fishermen saw a bear cub in a tree. Hours went by and the cub's mother didn't return, so the fishermen called wildlife biologist Rick Eastridge. The bear cub was sick and starving. He weighed only 5 pounds and his eyes were matted shut. Eastridge called Lisa Stewart, who works at Appalachian Bear Rescue in Tennessee. Appalachian Bear Rescue helps injure wild bears and cubs who have lost their mothers. I always make room for a new cub, says Stewart. She named the bear Miracle because she thought it was a miracle he had survived. A buddy named Buddy. When the bear cub arrived, Stewart cleaned his eyes and put him in a house by himself. If cubs are very young, they must be bottle fed. Since Miracle was already 5 months old, Stewart gave him bowls of food instead. In another bowl was a special formula, similar to a bear's mother's milk. Sometimes Miracle would poke his head out of his house and take a lap of formula or a bite of food, but he wasn't eating very much. Miracle was too weak to be with other bears, so Stewart gave him a teddy bear named Buddy. Miracle adopted Buddy right away. He took it into his house and covered it with straw. He fed Buddy too. Stewart often found the teddy bear covered in formula and berries and its ears full of apple chunks. Now that Miracle had Buddy, he came out of his house more often and wanted to eat. Into the wild. After 2 months, Stewart introduced Miracle to other bears, so they could learn from one another. She avoided any direct contact with Miracle and the other bears. Stewart wanted to make sure they stayed afraid of humans so they could go back into the wild again. She hid behind a fence and threw the food over the top. The bears hunted for this food as they would soon do in the wild. 5 months later, Rick Eastridge returned to pick up a healthy 90-pound Miracle and another bear from Arkansas named Rocky. Eastridge loaded the bears into bear boxes on his truck and transported them back to their wild habitat. As soon as the bear boxes were opened, the two cubs ran in for the woods where they belonged. And so now that we have read the article, the next thing we need to do is look at the pictures and the captions, because pictures and captions can sometimes give us information that can help us answer a critical thinking question. The picture at the top says, once Miracle was given his toy pal, Buddy, the cub started to recover. The second picture's caption says, Linda Stewart helped save Miracle's life. As soon as she could, she stopped having contact with the cub so he would not become too used to humans. And then the third picture says, Miracle and Rocky, Miracle's new friend, are returned to the wild. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at our critical thinking question one more time, and we're going to determine which words are really key words, because those keywords will help us find the information we need in the article itself. So we look at the question and it says, why was the cub a miracle? And so we are going to not read the passage one more time, but instead skim it, which means just look through the words looking for those key words. Remember, our key words for the question are going to be cub and miracle. So here we go. And as we just, like I said, just skimming. Here is the word cub. So we're going to read that sentence. On a June day in Arkansas, some fishermen saw a bear cub in a tree. That doesn't really help us answer the question why he was a miracle. So we don't need that sentence. Here is the word cub again. Hours went by and the cub's mother didn't return. Well, it seems kind of important, but it doesn't really seem to help us answer the question, so we don't need that sentence either. Here is the word cub again. This sentence says, the bear cub was sick and starving. Now that seems important to why the bear cub would be a miracle, so we're going to highlight that sentence. And as I keep skimming along, here is the word cub again, so I'm going to read that sentence. Appalachian Bear Rescue helps injured wild bears and cubs who have lost their mothers. Now, the whole sentence doesn't seem important, but the part that says cubs who have lost their mothers, that seems important, so I'm going to highlight that phrase. And I'll continue looking. Oh, here is the word miracle. So let's read that sentence. She named the bear Miracle because she thought it was a miracle he had survived. Well, that's someone's opinion, so I don't really want to use an opinion to answer my question, so that is not something I'm going to use. So I'm going to go under the part that's called a buddy named Buddy, and I'm going to look for cub and miracle some more. Here's the word cub. When the bear cub arrived, Stuart cleaned his eyes and put him in the house by himself. No, I don't think that's going to help us. Here's the word cubs again. If cubs are very young, they must be bottle fed. I don't think that's going to help me answer the question either. Oh, here's the word miracle, and it's capitalized, so it's talking about the name of the bear. Since Miracle was already 5 months old, Stuart gave him bowls of food instead. I don't think it's important. So I'm going to keep skimming. Here's Miracle as a name again. Sometimes Miracle would poke his head out of his house and take a lap of formula or a bite of food. But he wasn't eating very much. I think, but he wasn't eating very much seems important to why he would be a miracle. And here's the word miracle again. So that sentence says Miracle was too weak to be with other bears. That seems important. Here's the word miracle again. Miracle adopted Buddy right away. I don't think that's important to why he's Miracle. And I'm going to keep looking. And here's the word miracle as a name again. Now that Miracle had Buddy, he came out of his house more often and wanted to eat. Now that seems important, so I am going to highlight it. Now the next part is into the wild. And I don't think, because it says after 2 months, I don't think that's going to help me answer the question. So I'm going to stick with what I already have. So now I'm going to go back to the things I highlighted and put them together and make some inferences. So I highlighted the bear cub was sick and starving, and cubs who have lost their mothers. So I can infer that cubs who have lost their mothers can be sick and starving. So I think that could be the beginning of my answer. So I'm going to type, when cubs have lost their mothers, they can be sick and starving. And that's a good beginning to answering my critical thinking question. And I'm going to go on down here, and it says he wasn't eating very much and he was too weak to be with other bears. So I'm going to type as an inference the cub, because that's what the question used. The cub was not eating very much, and so he was too weak to be put with other bears. And then that leaves me this last part here. Now that Miracle had Buddy, he came out of his house more often and wanted to eat. So I'm going to write, after the cub got his Buddy, which was a stuffed animal, so I have to infer that and put that in my answer. His bear stuffed animal, he came out of his house and ate. And then so the last thing I have to do is I have to make sure I'm answering the question, and nowhere have I really stated the question, so I'm going to do it here at the end. This is the reason that the rescued cub was a miracle. So now I'm going to reread it just one more time. The question said, why was the cub a miracle? And my answer is, when cubs have lost their mothers, they can be sick and starving. The cub was not eating very much, And see, I have to edit. And so he was too weak to be put with other bears. After the cub got his bear stuffed animal, he came out of his house and ate. This is the reason that the rescued cub was a miracle. And so I feel like that answers my critical thinking question because it took sections, different sections of the article, and I was able to put them together through inferences to give information to answer the question completely.